I've been wanting to talk about this for a while now, and it's about money. Money is it's completely bullshit. It's fake. I mean, we create this value because the dollar bill, you know, it's everywhere. And if I go up to someone that doesn't believe in the dollar bill, he'll say it's useless. This doesn't serve here. So so we create the value. Everybody, it varies. If I go somewhere that doesn't accept the money I have, then I have no money in that place that I'm in. I have to surround myself with places that accept the dollar bills that I have. And thankfully, but not thankfully, and this is for the purpose of the government and banks, the U.S. goes to war so other countries accept the dollar bill, and that's why the dollar's so strong. But that's thanks to war, not good at all. But let's go back. Let's go back a couple centuries, long, long, long before any currency, was actually made. Before we found gold or silver, people traded. You had to trade. With your neighbors. Everybody usually had a farm or something. They were producing some value. If you were a blacksmith or whatever, if you created clothes from cotton, if I don't know, if you were a baker or whatever, they traded between themselves. I'll trade you this shirt for a piece of bread or whatever. I'll trade you this fork. I don't know. They traded based on what they needed. They created that value, and so we lived without money. We lived without any bills, and now it's quite different. You can't really. Well, they make you believe that you can't live without money. It's obviously a lot harder to live without money. But what I want to get to in this video is that money has enslaved humans, and I think we're in the path of like full enslavement for the rest of our lives if we don't change the perception of, if we don't change the way we look at money. And the reason why money is not doing things in the right way, is not managing this world in the right way, is because it's based off of debt. So it's a debt system, and it creates a burden in our lives. It creates a burden that creates enslavement, because now you're not waking up to go live. You're not waking up and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this and that, and I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna enjoy life, and it's gonna be peaceful." No, you wake up and you're like, "Shoot, if I don't get money right now, I'm going bankrupt. And if I go bankrupt, I lose everything." And that just doesn't sound like a good reason to wake up. It sounds like slavery. You're 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 waking up because you have to. You have to wake up for money, and if you don't pay off those debts, you lose everything, and so you lose kind of a sense of purpose in your life, which is we have to change that purpose. We have to change the perspective we have of life and of money. And just looking back at history, everybody, every important figure in politics that was about to change the way we saw money was killed. Andrew Jackson wasn't killed, but he there was an attempt on him. Julius Caesar, he wanted to create his own money apart from the hidden banks back then. And actually, it's quite funny that history gets erased, gets changed, so we don't realize what's going on right now, how we're being manipulated. Like Abraham Lincoln was not killed because he freed slaves. He was killed because he was trying to change the way money was produced in the United States. And no one knows about it because they erased that history. We're not taught in history class that Abraham Lincoln had the potential to change the monetary system in the United States so we would be debt free. We were just taught that he freed slaves and someone in the South got mad and that's why they killed him, which is totally not true because he even mentioned that he would rather save the country, save the Union, than to free a slave. So yes, it's great what he did for slavery, whatnot, but that wasn't even his main purpose. And the fact that we're not taught that shows that they had tried to hide this information, so we never noticed what's actually going on. He created greenbacks, which is like bonds, and bonds are based off of debt. They create interest but greenbacks don't have any interest, and so the government would be able to produce money for the people without having to play catch up, without having to wake up every day. He's like, oh, I gotta get money so I can pay off my debt, this interest, and well, people liked them for it. People enjoyed the greenbacks. It created a less stressful life because you're not playing catch up to this interest, which interest is the reason why everybody's enslaved right now. Interest is, it was actually illegal to make loans with interest. It was called usury, and still, thankfully, well, not thankfully, but since I call this, the elites, the ones that control all the banks, which control the governments. The governments don't do anything because the governments themselves are in debt. And you see, that's why they killed Abraham Lincoln, because if they can't have the United States government under their debt, then they can't control the government. And now they obviously did a good job, and we're like $38 trillion in debt, and so the government is enslaved to these elites. So don't stress yourself out about politic parties. That's all a little show. So what do we do now? I guess really, like now that we know that money is an enslavement, how could we change? It's not easy. What I would do is don't take out a loan. Don't take out any loans. It would be better to buy a car that's like $2,000 and has a lot of stuff to fix than to buy a $40,000 car off of debt when you're just playing catch up. Because once you pay it off, once you pay the $2,000 directly, and obviously you have to go fix it and whatnot. Maybe it's another 3,000. But that's it. You don't have to keep on paying. And then, well, now the car insurance, insurance. That's another thing. They try to get you to be, they try to scare you like, oh, you need insurance. I mean, it's illegal now. Like, and who passed these laws? Well, obviously the politicians had to. If not, they would be killed. The ones that control the government told them they had to pass these laws, and it's just weird now. You have to have insurance for everything, so you have to work a lot more actually, and prices go up because they need to make money. These insurance companies make so much money, so that's just another thing. So I guess we can look into how this United States debt system works, and it's terrible. I mean, you got, let's say you're going to high school. They motivate you to go to college. Like, you have to go to college, and don't worry if you don't have money. We'll give you loans. Don't worry. And it's not really nice to start off with $20,000 in debt, but a lot of students in the United States graduate with $20,000 in debt, and they're not even guaranteed a job. So where do they go? McDonald's. They got to start. If they can't find a job at a corporate company, which they were so motivated to work under a big corporation, well, they would have to start working. So you have debt, which is bearing interest. The student loans, you have a car payment. On top of that, you have a rent, and if you're renting, well, you're spending money, and you're never going to create that equity that's going to create value in the future, so you could create wealth. And you'll see, like, now they want you start renting everything, like so you don't own anything at all, and so you'll always be enslaved. If you don't do that, you're gonna have to buy, a home under a mortgage, and a mortgage is just a pretty nice way of saying, hey, for 30 years you better work, and if you don't work, then you can't pay off the mortgage, and if you can't pay off the mortgage, well, you have to file for bankruptcy or foreclosure or whatnot, and that means that you have to sell everything rapidly, and so you lose a lot of value, and that you lose a lot of equity if you have to sell under under foreclosure. And who buys it back from you? The same people that gave you that mortgage. So you paid them, and you mostly paid them interest, and now they bought what they sold to you for so much cheaper than it is, and so now they I can't say this stuff on YouTube, but they got you, and it's just it's terrible. It's terrible. This whole this money just creates fear, stress, and it's all fake. Like this because we gave it value, and we give it value too, and we have these bad habits that we have to change. That's just another conversation. Like looking, like going after a status. Having this nice car, and that's what a lot of Americans, you know, you have you have a nice home under a mortgage. You have those 2, 3 nice cars under loans, and if they don't work for 1 week, boom, everything's gone because they can't. If they don't make their payments, then they're done. So that whole look, the whole millionaire look. Most of these Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which again, that's enslavement. That's literally saying you can't go on vacation because if you go on vacation, bro, you lose everything. And so your life is based off of what you have and not what you do, not what you enjoy to do. And for me, that's terrible. So I would just say, just start looking at money more strategically. Don't be fooled by it. You have to understand the games they play, so you could. I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna be. You'll never reach that level of elites, like the elite bankers and stuff. And I'm talking about the ones that own the banks, not the ones that work for banks. But if you work for a bank, you'll definitely learn more about the system, and that's gonna help you create wealth and not be manipulated by money. So, but just be smart, Um, especially for all the young folks like me, like the decisions we make now are really gonna are really influential on what path we go to. If we go onto this debt path that we'll never be able to escape, or if we'll be able to do what we want with our life, and if you want, create that wealth that in the future will be of benefit for you. But yeah, peace.